Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL graduates and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at another wildcard for game week 3. Of course, we got injury hit in game week 2. A lot of managers are potentially having to hit that wildcard with, 3 or even 4 injuries in some cases going into this week. Let's have a look into the team and see who we've picked out for our team.
Yeah, as Ben says, it was an injury-plagued week, and we had a lot of questions of people owning the likes of Nuri, Palmer, Saka, Ruta as well. There's quite a few of them knocking around, which is so unfortunate. And to use your wildcard this week is not ideal just before an international break, but if needs must, then we've put together a team that could be decent for the long term. So starting off in goal, we've got Matt Sells. Obviously, no clean sheets just yet for Nottingham Forest, but I think there is one on the horizon. West Ham at home is a good opportunity for that at the moment with how poor they are so far to start the season. Just the one goal, and it was a worldie from Paqueta, basically. So, yeah, nothing too much happening in that West Ham attack. In the defence, we've got Livramento away at Leeds this week. He obviously picked up an assist against Liverpool. You could go for Dan Burn, who's picked up DEFCON in both of his games so far. It depends what you want. If you want a high floor, I'd go Burn. If you want the high ceiling, I'll go with Livramento, who could provide some decent attacking threat. Van der Ven in the middle of defence with Bournemouth at home this week. Bournemouth actually one of the best fixtures for DEFCONs for centre backs. So this could be an odd case where Van der Ven actually does get DEFCON. He's not the most prolific, but he is only 4.5 million. And to be fair, that Tottenham defence already looks much better than what it did last season. And then to round off the back three, we do have Ezri Konsa with Palace at home this week. He's obviously back from his one match suspension. They definitely missed him playing that high line against Brentford. I expect Villa haven't really been too bad defensively so far this season in terms of their expected data. So yeah, I think it's a decent pick, and the fixture run for Villa for at least 5 to 6 weeks is pretty decent. What's the thoughts on that defence and the keeper, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of looking at, the a long time in terms of planning this wild card because, of course, you're not going to be able to use another one till the second half of the season. So you've got to make sure that these picks are safe, secure, and of course, like I said, with Dan Burn, it's a high floor, so that's the option that you can go with. And yeah, with all of these defenders here, like Van der Ven, I think he's going to be fairly secure in his minutes as long as he doesn't get injured. That is, Ezri Konsa for Villa, like Josh said, like the fixture run is decent too. And yeah, Matt Sales I think is going to be a solid option. I don't think there's any frills about it. And I don't think it needs to be one that has too many frills about it. You don't need to take, too many risks at this early point in the season. A lot of the, some of these wild cards are going to be rectifying, issues in your team that is maybe sort of 4, 5, 6 issues going on. So in all honesty, it may not need, a huge amount of transfers. So yeah, for that's the sort of defense rounded up, and of course, yeah, you want some good fixture runs, and you also want to make sure that you have some good fixture rotations too for your defense.
Yeah, 100%. I think Chris Richards can provide that with Ezri Konsa at least. He's got decent fixtures as well for Palace after this Palace Villa game. And obviously very good for the Defcons as well. Joe Rodon as well, very good for Defcons. And we mentioned it in our game week guide for game week 3 that these 4 mil defenders could provide really nice value with obviously the ability to get Defcons in those tougher games. And then if they do get a clean sheet here and there, as well as some Defcons as well, then it's happy days. You're getting a haul from someone who's the cheapest asset in the game. So yeah, decent defence there. Moving on into the midfield, we've got a midfield 5. Obviously, this is going to be a Haaland and Salah draft. So Mo Salah does come in there. Obviously, he's got Burnley at home, Burnley away, should I say, in game week 4, and then Everton at home in game week 5. So some nice fixtures on the horizon for him. Obviously, not been too great and not too involved so far for Liverpool in the season, but he's returned in both game weeks, and that's what you get. He's just inevitable and always reliable, and someone you can stick your armband on when you are struggling. We've got Anderson and Reinders in there, two 5.5-ish midfielders. Obviously, Reinders has risen twice now. It could be any of those guys you fancy. You could also downgrade two of the players in this team, which we'll get onto, and spread the funds a little bit further if you wanted to. I think with Anderson, you've got someone who's locked in for 90 minutes every week. He's on some set pieces. He could lose a couple maybe to Douglas Luiz, but until we see that, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Obviously, he's been one off DEFCON 2 weeks in a row as well, so I'd imagine he'll be hitting that pretty soon. Reinders, obviously, when he does play attacking like we saw against Wolves, is a phenomenal asset at the price. When he is deeper like we saw against Spurs, maybe not as great, but it's one of those ones which you probably take the risk on because he's just so cheap, and to get an attacker that cheap in that City team, it's pretty decent. Fernandes is in there. Obviously, he's got the fixture for this week with Burnley at home. We mentioned him in our game week guide of having so many routes to points. You could easily play him 38 game weeks of the season, and chances are you're probably going to get a return in most of them. So yeah, he's a decent option, but again, one of those guys you can maybe downgrade and spread the funds elsewhere if you're not a fan of two 5.5s. And then we've got Atara as well, obviously the new signing for Brentford, off the back of a huge haul from just one goal. Obviously he picked up the bonus points, the DEFCONs, and the goal itself, so he could be a nice little asset. I quite like the look of him and how versatile he is in that Brentford attack. You could even see minutes maybe down as a forward as well. And obviously Sunderland away this week is a ideal fixture to target going into this. What's the thoughts on the midfield, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the midfield, of course, like Josh said, you can play around a little bit with the structure, because there's an element of risk going with two 5.5 million midfielders. We sort of accept that, and like Josh said, we will be able to spread those funds a little bit. Yeah, I mean, what you really want again is men that are going to have lots of minutes, and the only one you could probably say has an element of risk of minutes is Reinders, but that's because of Manchester City and the way that they play. Of course, with this, we've got Fernandes as a captaincy option, Salah as a captaincy option, and then another potential captaincy option up top as well within this draft. So plenty of potential sort of captaincies, and means that in any given game week with this team, you're likely to have one of the top three captains of the week in terms of expected points and who's going to be sort of the most template captain to go with. Ouattara is really interesting as an asset. I completely agree with you. There looks to be quite a lot of routes to points, which is really looking or becoming increasingly more important for those midfielders in particular. Of course, with so many more routes to those points, your captaincy shifts a little bit further away from those strikers again, which again, we could see throughout the season that become a little bit imbalanced, and us just captaining midfielders every week compared to forwards, but it is what it is. And yeah, overall, this is, how the midfield is set up. I think fairly sort of solid, and one where, like I said and reiterated before, the minutes is absolutely crucial.
Okay, then, and onto that forward line, Ollie Watkins is up there again. It's someone who you could downgrade if you wanted to. I just really like the fixtures for the upcoming 5-6 game weeks. Some really nice ones in there. Not put off by the lack of form so far from Villa. I think it will turn around. Maybe not this week either. It's just one of those patient games that I'm happy to wait and see, because the options around his price, maybe other than Ekatike, aren't looking too great either. So yeah, I'd happily take him at the minute. And obviously Erling Haaland, as Ben mentioned, he's the other captaincy option who's super reliable as well. Again, could be a captaincy option for this week with that Brighton away fixture. He seems to do well there at the Amex from sort of recent memory. What's the thoughts on those forwards, Ben? Is there anyone else you'd maybe consider?
Yeah, I mean, like the Watkins at the moment for the fixtures is my favourite one to go for, and Haaland looks just generally sort of like fairly solid again. In terms of other options, yeah, like you said, there are going to be other options that appear. I think you can make a case really for João Pedro, given how crucial he could potentially be if Cole Palmer is out for sort of any more than a single game week. He looked really, really good in that number 10 position for Chelsea. So yeah, he's definitely going to be an option. Chris Wood could be an option as well. He's started the season fairly well, and I think with the wild cards, you can capture a couple of price rises along the way. Then you'll be, potentially laughing, and in particular, you want to maybe look at those who you think are performing so well that they're going to continue to rise over the international break as well. So there's a couple of options for that second striker spot, and look, you could maybe sort of try and push one of those sort of croupy on the bench up to, you know, a 6.5, maybe like Strand Larson, whose fixtures aren't too bad either for Wolves. So there's a couple of options that you can go for. But overall, like, this structure does give a little bit of flexibility where you can go up and down in between the price ranges quite easily.
Indeed. So that wraps up our game week 3 wildcard draft. Let us know if you're going to have to hit the wildcard this early on. We strongly would advise putting it off if you can, unless you're really decimated by injuries. Myself, probably will be wildcarding next week over the international break, which is a nice time to sort of reassess and hopefully catch some price rises as well. So yeah, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.
But I'm not good.